I know. This title seems abrasive. The One Piece will lead us to ruin. But am I wrong though? Like, think about it. Am I? I'm not. I'll explain to you. You know, right after these messages.
You've got some attitude, mister.
The reason I say what I'm saying is think about what transpired with comic books. Look at what happened when the MCU basically, started feeling themselves in their content. There's a fucking dog outside barking. Can you hear that? I don't know if I mixed the audio correctly. Fuck it. But he is mad. But think of what happened to the MCU. All right, just as a point of reference, think about this. In the beginning, even way before the MCU's inception, when we had comic book movies, there were far and few apart, right? And even then, they were marginally okay, right? Hell, The Dark Knight was such a great movie that it lifted both a terrible prequel and a horrible sequel. But it was that good. It's that good of a Batman movie. It's such a good Batman movie. Yet, despite that, still, Batman Begins is terrible, and The Dark Knight Returns is so unbelievably stupid. Like, there's certain parts in that movie that's just fantastic. Like the lines Bane have in that movie. I love the lines and quotes that he has. That movie is just chef's kiss on that. you, you mentally adopted the dark. I was born in it. But we had but then it's like after they started picking up in terms of this untapped market that basically has a huge fandom, as is a niche fandom, has always kind of been on the back burner of society. We got into it, and then we start pumping out movies again and again and again. And look at what happened and transpired. In the very beginning of the MCU, there's like from the top three movies, you had Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. Thor is a movie that I urge people to go back and watch, as the first one is a lot better than I remember. Um, I remember looking at it and being like, I was incredibly bored because I didn't know the character, didn't care for the character, didn't like it and whatnot. But going back, seeing the star-studded performance of Anthony Hopkins, what Chris Hemsworth did, the guy who played Loki, the movie's great in certain doses. Honestly, everything before Thor gets banished is like fine to me. Um, but then you have Captain America, which was a terrible fucking movie, and Iron Man, which was a great movie.
Much like we might do in front of a mirror to see what we look like when we do that new dance step, or when we just want to see how we look.
But only until the Avengers got created. And then you basically just had a recipe for greatness created by Josh Whedon. Did the MCU essentially just strive to only pump out movies that were like that? But in doing so, you then had the issue of them constantly trying to indulge themselves in the culture war with a bunch of people whom they put on this pedestal to allow all of this culture war bullshit within these contexts, or within these comic book heroes that had nothing to do with that stuff in the first place.
6 simple words. I'm not gay, but I'll learn.
So, even though the MCU was rising and rising, it was still slowly being infected with unnecessary things that essentially overall ruined so much of the industry, not just as the movies go, but even to go so far as the actual comics itself. Its source material got wrecked because of these people involving themselves in doing weird things, whether it became diversity or talking about religion or sexism, all this dumb shit. And it came to a head where the perfect personification of how fucking stupid and unnecessary that stuff was is literally at the height of the MCU, which is Infinity War and Endgame, where you have shoehorned in the very middle of those movies. What? Exactly. Captain fucking Marvel. A movie that made $1 billion just off of the fact that people wanted to make sure they didn't miss anything when Endgame came out. So disliked, so hated was the actress, Was the fucking script, was the movie itself. Nothing made sense. It didn't do anything. It retconned a bunch of shit that already was explained in prior movies. It was a clusterfuck of stupid. Made $1 billion.
Good night.
And the people who made that $1 billion went on to make a sequel that, as of me recording this, is due to come out soon. And it's going to be terrible. Apparently, they spent $270 million on making it. Fuck! And for some reason, they expect to get, I guess, the billion back? Without it being squeezed in between two of the biggest movies that ever existed in history? I can't wait to find out about that one. I am so, like, I'm sitting on a tightrope and wondering whether or not I should go to the theaters to see this movie. I know it's going to be a train wreck of stupid, but I didn't see the Eternals or anything like that, but it's like something that you know is going to be bad. Do you want to stomach it? I don't know. I don't know. Do I want to wait till it? Jesus, I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted. But that's another thing. That's another thing. But my point is the fact that we gotten to the point where essentially the comic books themselves built up the character Carol Danvers into being this super person or whatnot. And then when that went into the movies, it did nothing. It meant nothing. It was nothing. Because that's what the character is. That's what she became. She was nothing. She was just a mouthpiece for essentially women something. I'm not sure what, because it never really was made clear. She just kind of had a weird hairstyle and was like a Superman character, but no one fucking liked her. So the absolute unnecessary unhinged that came from these people infecting comic books and thereby messing with comic book movies to try and get their message of whatever across was such a horrible thing that now the MCU isn't even a shell of its former self. It's now a mockery. It literally did within the span of a few years, which took Disney a couple of years to do with Star Wars. Like they destroyed Star Wars' reputation, but they still took a while. And Star Wars was already a big thing for decades before Disney got a hold of it and then ruined it. While with the MCU, it didn't even get that long. It was like right immediately after Endgame, here comes stupid movie after stupid movie after stupid movie after stupid movie. Now it's stupid TV show, stupid movie, stupid TV show, stupid TV show, stupid movie. And it's like, you didn't even give this time to breathe. You could have aired out or something. No time whatsoever. And it's like, I look at that. I look at what happened, and it's like, and I feel bad for fans of comic books. You have Eric July. He created the Rippaverse, which is a booming comic book industry, a booming comic book business, which has been doing well by literally just making fucking comics. It's not like he made the answer to Marvel and DC. You're like, hey, do you hate those things? Come look at my thing. No. He made it because he's someone that knew and followed the industry for years, spent his own money on building the shit, and just made comic books. And made millions off of just presenting and promoting, I'm making my own comic book. And you know that I'm about my shit because I've been talking about it for years. It's been fantastic. While Disney and Marvel still have Disney money, and DC's basically been sold over and over and over again, but they just been, super every time every chance they can get. But they have these properties that are known to characters that are known world fucking wide. Like I can't stress that enough. People all around the world know who Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman is. And now, because of what the MCU did, you get Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and X-Men, Hulk, all these other characters. And it's like, you can do so much. But because you were told once upon a time how great you were, despite the fact that you clearly had flaws, every time they interjected something stupid about women's rights or issues within the movies, they should have been called out for it. They did, but they didn't listen. Every time Kevin Feige opened up his mouth and people sat there and praised him because it was like he got his job because he was a fan, despite the fact that he wasn't truly that big of a Marvel fan. They should have said something.
I was like, there he go. He done fucked it up for everybody.
But all we got were a bunch of mouthpieces who essentially constantly, and I mean constantly, kept driving home the fact that they needed this content to speak on their behalf.
Remove the tone, because that's awful.
And that was the crazy thing, right? And it's like, it's speaking on their behalf, but it's content that was never meant to speak to them in the first place. Didn't anyone find that crazy? That despite all that they were preaching for and crying about and what they wanted, they immersed themselves in something that was never meant to be theirs. And then when it did not work, or it alienated the audience that it had, they were fucking confused. Kevin Feige screamed how Captain Marvel was basically going to be the new face of the MCU. She's going to be the strongest character. She's going to do all this, do all that. And when it got shown through the DVD sales, I believe the DVD and the Blu-ray sales to Captain Marvel were abysmal. They were terrible. That's when it struck a chord to Disney that, hey, this might be a bad idea. So then next up on chopping block was essentially Scarlet Witch. And then you got the WandaVision show. And then they removed that idea. Because that's a terrible show.
Well, why you booing me? I'm right.
But it was so weird that essentially it's like you stuck this weird lesbian figurehead as supposedly the new leader of everything that is involved in nerd culture that you've amassed through these characters that have existed for a long time within comic books. And for some reason, you did everything you possibly could to piss these people off and chase them away from the actual subject matter. I know what you're thinking. What the hell does this got to do with One Piece? I'm getting to that. This is all very important. Think of, again, what happened to them is going to happen to anime. I guarantee it.
Call the police.
So it was just so weird that it's like you just have so much influence by these people. And you gotta say influence. That these people were able to influence so much of this content to the point where it's now unrecognizable. She-Hulk was disastrous of a show. Just fucking terrible. Yet at the same time, someone thought that was an okay thing to do. Someone who was in charge of all the of Marvel, and they got the comics and everything like that, was like, everything that She-Hulk is talking about is something I want to see within in content. That's what I want to see on the television show, and that is going to generate money. Despite the fact that everything we've done prior that's similar to this, that hasn't generated money, it has the exact same signs. Everything that they keep screaming about and that these people keep talking about that they don't want to see within their shows, this is what we keep putting in their shows. They don't want to see it. Why are we still making it? Do we not like money? And then you just have this unbelievable influx where even in the fucking comic book scope, the biggest comics in the world taking a back seat to something that comes from overseas. God damn!
Hey, nobody's perfect.
Manga was destroying comic books within the graphic novel scope, and it's always been a shitty business, like in terms of dealing with who sells what and how much money they make for comic books because of Diamond and things like that. I urge people to look at Eric July videos when he talks about the comic book industry, because actually anyone's video talk about comic book industry, because it's a fuck. It's just a fuck nugget, really. But it's just something to where it's like, okay, that's a niche genre infesting a niche genre. Comic books are already a thing, and now even to those people who indulge in that thing, they're going somewhere else for said thing. Fuck you. Now, putting this in perspective in terms of what happened with the live action One Piece, because I know you're wondering, like, damn, it took him forever to get there. Putting this into perspective is that Netflix okayed the Cowboy Bebop live action. Them doing the One Piece live action does not mean that they should be forgiven for that previous mistake. Does not mean that they should, like, be forgiven for the fucking live action Death Note. But what it does mean is that by bringing out a show that happened to be marginally good, you get the utmost praise just simply because you're not complete and utter dog shit. The show is not perfect. It is not great. It is not even a good representation of One Piece. I have to admit, the main actor who plays Monkey D. Luffy is fucking perfect. He was perfect. Sad thing is, the series itself is not One Piece. I urge anybody that's listening to this that would argue otherwise, I urge you, please go watch just some episodes of the actual anime of One Piece. I don't care if you can't even stomach animation. Fuck you. Look at the anime. Look at just a few episodes of the anime. And then tell me that the live action did well. Please. Because the differences between those two shows is like night and fucking day. And the sad thing is that it was IGN who actually gave a review on One Piece, and it was just crazy that a lot of people tried to diminish that review. But as someone who's watched One Piece and then looked at the live action, I couldn't help but feel like, yeah, I understand. If you've seen One Piece and then you look at this live action, it is not anything to write home about. It is not a great adaptation. It is not a good representation of what One Piece is or anything that One Piece has generated. It is the most popular anime in the world, and this showrunner desperately cut out some of the most important details of the series for no reason.
Enough, enough. The madness stops here. Do you see that there is nowhere else to go?
And that's where the main issue comes into play, because similar to what happened to comic book movies and the comic book characters, is that you have this overabundance and indulgence in creating and making all of this stuff and all of this content where you just have like so much source material, so many things that's given to you that you could just make a movie out of. You don't need to follow a franchise, yet they desperately feel that they need to. You don't need to do any of that. You can just make good movies. Like hell, DC has done it, but again, they fail to recognize what they actually have, and like most of the time with DC, they keep fucking it up. But you have so much content that's at your feet, and where it's like, I just need someone to be able to take this and put it into the big screen. That's it. You don't need to change anything. You don't need to alter anything. These are critically acclaimed stories that the fandom themselves love to death. Take it and put it over there. Now just make it move. And then you would have something. Look at a perfect example. Look at the Killing Joke movie. It's a DC animated movie of the Killing Joke. It's Batman. The Killing Joke is a highly praised comic. I believe it's overrated, but it is highly praised. It is okay in certain parts, but it's like, to me, highly overrated. But it is critically acclaimed as a big time, like, do they consider it a graphic novel because of how many pages? I'm not sure. But it is critically acclaimed for what it did. Hell, the incidents that happened within Killing Joke are some things that became a main staple within the Batman comic books because of that's how popular it was. It was just a one-off story of Batman, but it was that damn good that it had that lasting effect within the industry itself, or the for the character himself, whether it be both Batman, Joker, Barbara Gordon, or Commissioner Gordon. That's how big of an impact that story had, and then how well received it was. They made an animated movie of The Killing Joke. And for the first 30 minutes of that movie, it is complete and utter bullshit. It is everything that I've just talked about that's wrong with the MCU. You got that in the beginning of The Killing Joke movie. It's focused on Barbara Gordon for whatever reason.
What?
It was talking about how basically as a girl, she was just superior for whatever reason.
What?
And then basically you have her have sex with Batman for whatever reason. And then it just comes across as a weird, awkward thing that wasn't necessary, nor did it even happen in the comic book of The Killing Joke. And then after that 30 minutes, that thing is completely removed. It's not even brought up again or talked about. And then they get into the actual movie of The Killing Joke. And to which you just sit there and wonder, then what the fuck was that earlier thing? Why was that necessary? What did that do? What did you have to gain or lose by adding in that bullshit? And because of that, it was hated.
Yup. Diarrhea.
People hated that movie because of that. And again, you had Mark Hamill coming back to reprise his role as Joker. You had Kevin Conroy coming back to play Batman. You had all the stars were aligned to make sure that you were able to do something that people have wanted to see for years. And you fucked it up in one fell swoop because someone said, I think the people want to talk about Batgirl. What? It's a Killing Joke. Why not just do something that's early on Batman or something that happened that take place to Joker getting arrested or another villain getting caught, something like that, which leads into Batman figuring out that Joker was gone or something like that. Anything else. You could have done anything else. Something that could have been creative within the context of the series, within the context of another comic that possibly either predates The Killing Joke or something that goes after The Killing Joke. Anything. You could have done anything. But you wanted to be a movie length, and then you added 30 minutes of nothing because you only had an hour worth of content to work with. Unbelievably stupid. So stupid. But the byproduct of what happened with the animated version of The Killing Joke is essentially what I see within the live action One Piece. It's something where it's like the cut content within the live action wasn't necessary. You can't tell me that those were good ideas or that was something that was justifiably done because of what you were working with. Well, there are restraints that we can do with live action. What the fuck does Garp have to do with being in the story at this point in time? How is that a restraint with live action? Why is Kobe in a majority of the episodes when he's a character who literally leaves after like 3 or 4? He's barely even in the major fight when Luffy finds Zoro. Why do you have Kobe around so much? And then after Luffy gets Zoro, Kobe is such a non-fucking factor. He disappears, never to be seen again until so much later. And I don't understand the need or the reason behind having that when, again, you're supposed to be a fan. You supposedly wrote this with the creator. You supposedly did everything you could to get as much as you could by showcasing and highlighting the series in a respectable way that basically would emphasize what it is that the anime did and why the anime made you feel the way you feel to the point where you wanted to make this fucking thing in the first place.
You do not get to pretend that you're being noble if you're just doing some random shit. If I fucking jerk off on the subway and I say, this one's for the troops, that doesn't matter.
All of that needs to be taken into consideration when you look at this shit and when you see this stuff. And because I say that all that needs to be looked into, that's also why I bring up the fact that you're going to see an abundance of shows do this shit over and over and over. Why not do a story where it's like it's actually showcasing and highlighting an actual story in Spider-Man's world or something that existed in a book? It was just a poignant story that's like critically acclaimed by a bunch of the fans as something that they would like to see turned into a movie. Well, we got to make sure this character's black. Got to turn this character gay. Don't forget Mary Jane is supposed to be Zendaya because that makes sense. What other thing? There's like, wait. Why are you doing this? What is the reason behind doing this? Other than the fact that you want to do it, but there's no logical reason behind it except you want to do it. And that is what's going to happen to anime and manga within the live action scope. And it's not like just because this one show did okay, it just did okay, that means that because it did that means that from now on we're going to see far more congruent adaptations, we're going to see an abundance of people actually stick to the source material and trying to incorporate that when they do a live action adaptation. No, this is Netflix we're talking about. And you people have been singing them praises for absolutely no reason whatsoever, other than the fact that they just happen to not be Disney. Again, I've seen so many people give One Piece praises when there's huge plot holes, the story doesn't make sense, characters do things that are uncharacteristic within what they showed within the show, not based off of the anime and the manga, but literally, I say I don't want to deal with pirates, and then Luffy goes off onto a ship, and then they fucking follow him for no reason. He didn't ask them to, they didn't say they needed to go somewhere, they just get on the boat with him. But they supposedly don't want to deal with pirates, and he's stated multiple times, I'm a fucking pirate.
Angry young man.
That made no sense. But in the actual anime, they did so much stuff that actually made fucking sense. So again, why didn't you just do that? I don't understand. I don't know. And again, I'm seeing so many people look at that information, they look at that stuff, and they see what's going on, and they gloss the fuck over it. Yet, Ahsoka is terrible. Ahsoka's a piece of shit. And I can't help but feel that you have so many people who essentially are Star Wars fans looking at something that they can tell it's taken from a story that's supposed to be based off of something Luke Skywalker does. They're adding in the rebels, which again makes it very confusing if you haven't seen that show, which is again kind of a bad testament to writing. It just got so much shit going on to where people are just super hyped just by seeing glimpses of Darth Vader and Hayden Christensen playing Anakin again, that it overcompensates for the fact that the majority of that episode was spent doing nothing. But yet, One Piece, oh, it was fantastic. It was great. I didn't understand what was going on, and I just chalked that up to anime being different. And that's a bad way to look at content. Again, I did in a previous video talking about why you shouldn't lower your standards for media, and that's exactly why. No, judge this the way how you would judge anything you fucking look at. Don't sit there and think that it gets a pass because it's anime, or that you should basically sing praises to it because it happens to not be everything else. This did not follow the same route that Cowboy Bebop did by making a live action adaptation. That does not mean One Piece is good. That just means that it didn't do the fuck up Cowboy Bebop did. That's it. This actually keeps towards the story that's presented within One Piece. That doesn't mean that the story is actually coherent or that it follows well without any plot holes. It just means that it didn't do crazy goofy shit that you got within the last couple of Star Wars series. These things aren't judged fairly. They're judged based off of some weird fucking mentality of just, hey, you happen to not fuck up like them. But you don't understand that the issue with that comes in the fact that those people don't learn from mistakes, much like with the MCU and why it did what it did for so fucking long. Those people look at all of their accomplishments as just that, accomplishments. We did nothing but good, perfect, all across the board. Again and again and again, we will make this content until this horse stops spitting out fucking money. Then we're going to move on to the next thing that everyone starts liking. And that's terrible, because the people who are left with the aftermath of this, because this is why I always say I can't stand comic book people getting into anime and the manga, because their approach towards it is like that of a jilted lover.
Oh, damn.
I'm sorry.
They're not interested in anime and manga because they actually like anime and manga. Most of the time, well, like from the ones that you see kind of constantly promoting and talking about this shit like that, they're doing that because they want comic books to become good again. And so what they're doing is that essentially is like, I'm dating someone to make my previous lover jealous. So once they get their shit together, I'm moving back. I'm going back to them because that's the end goal. That's what they want. And the problem with that is that the people who are left with the pieces to pick up are the actual fans of anime and manga, who basically get their shit distorted by comic book fans, essentially letting anime and manga go unchecked all this time because they keep telling them, oh, you're great, you're perfect, you're fine the way you are, keep doing what you're doing, there's nothing wrong with what you got going on. And then when they leave, which they inevitably will, when they leave, both them and the people who basically kept building you up in the wrong fucking direction by creating you and making you the way that you are, The people who were generally fans, interested in the content, into the media, and invested into these stories, these characters, and everything they had going for it, are going to be left with something that's unrecognizable. They're going to be left with a fucking Captain Marvel movie. And then anime itself, the industry, wondering why, when I'd release a sequel to this great thing that everyone told me was fantastic, is it not generating buzz, not making people want to see? No one's pre-ordering a fucking ticket. Why isn't it doing these things when they told me it was good? They told me it was great. Who were they? The people who actually care about this shit? Or the people who were using you?
I think I've been poisoned by my constituents!
Whether it be to push some dumb shit or to use you to essentially make fun of other shit that came out that they don't like. It is the writing is on the wall, because again, you've seen this before. This has happened with comic books and comic book movies, as well as video games, for the love of God. Hell, it's still happening in video games, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. But the writing is on the walls, because that's just what these people do with these, I'm about to say niche genres, but with these interests, with this culture, with these things that they take and they just use and manipulate and twist for their own selfish needs. And all I'm advocating is that the people, you have got to stop. You have got to stop letting these people sit there and tell you that this show is good when they have no point of reference. Hell, I can't tell you how ridiculous it is. I look at Yellow Flash's videos, and it's like he keeps praising the live action, and it's like, I get that you don't know anything about One Piece in general, but please watch the anime. I urge you to just look at some of the episodes and then see exactly how far removed this live action actually is from said episodes, as well as go back and look at it again. And don't think about anything else. Just look at that series. Truly judge it based as if you was watching something that you know has no source material or anything like that. Just look at it. And I just, it's so crazy that you just have this going on within the scope of anime and whatnot, to where, like, it, again, much like what a lot of people has been praising One Piece, and it's like, you know, a lot of people were saying this is the anime, this is the live action that broke the curse of terrible live action adaptations, when there have been plenty of live action adaptations. They've just been, you just don't know about them because you're not interested in this shit. You haven't been following anime for that long. You just now got into it. So that's what it is. What is it? It is the Google, like, people who just that they got Google information about shit. Like, they'll look it up, they'll Google it real quick, and then for some reason they think that they're an expert on characters and whatnot. They ain't spent years looking at it, ain't bought nothing, ain't been in it, going to conventions and nothing like that for it, but they Googled it, and so now they know. And it's like I said, like, it's just, I don't want this to happen, but I know that it's coming. And like I said, like, you've had an abundance of live action anime adaptations that have actually been good. Do anyone forget the Rurouni Kenshin movies? There's 5 of them. 5! And they're great. They're all great. Oh, we don't talk about that. No. Battle Angel Alita actually was a perfect adaptation. It's a boring movie, and really only worth one watch. But if you've seen the OVA that it's based off of, it's fucking perfect. God, is it perfect. But we don't talk about that. No. See, Netflix is a big name thing that has its own backing and fandom and whatnot. And so whenever Netflix does something, should it be considered legit?
Shut up, nigga! Shut up! Hey! Getting in my business. Nobody asked you to be Joey Greco. Shut the hell up! Don't be mad because you don't got a girl, nigga. Hey! All in my business. Nobody asked for your advice, bro. Nobody. Shut the hell up.
Get the fuck out of here. I don't like what I'm seeing because I don't like where anime is heading. Anime already got their own fucking issues and stuff that they got going on. And yeah, it's a Japanese thing, but trust me, the Japanese, the Chinese, and the Koreans, when it comes to story, structure, plot, stuff like that, they have a lot of issues. And it'd be great if they learn to fix them, but the rate at which people are going in terms of just gassing them up into thinking that their shit is perfect when it is not. is only going to lead to that weird stagnation that essentially has been plaguing them for decades. They got such a stagnation problem. Oh man. Hell, here's a perfect example of their little of that said problem. Naruto, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Chainsaw Man are the exact same show. I'm not being facetious. I'm not picking from small little inklings of it. No, in the grand spectrum of their shows, it's the exact same fucking thing. Even the main character has a demon thing inside of him that when he transforms, he gets a hell of a lot stronger. That comes out at inopportune moments when otherwise everyone is talking down to him because he's a low level whatever. It's the exact same show. But you have people who essentially are jumping onto the bandwagon of anime and manga, and then because they're getting into this shit just off that, they're like, oh no, it's good, it's great. And since only thing that they know is basically the same thing being shown over and over and over again, and they think that that's something that the fandom of said industry is okay with, they sit there and sing it praises. Yeah, this is good, this is good, this is good. It's the same thing.
Someone's been off the chain again.
There's more to anime than just shonen. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is a fact. That is an actual fact. There's more to anime than just shonen. Despite what your mama might tell you, there's a lot more. But you'll never get to a point where people will finally respect it in the art form that they should respect it, even when attempting live action adaptations, if you do not sit there and tell these people, hey, you're fucking up. You don't sit there and go, oh no, they're doing good, because no, you're fucking up. So call them out on it, please. But until then, shit like the live action One Piece will keep happening. And it will only get worse, just like the MCU did. And by the time people are willing to sit there and tell you that they have been fucking up, it'll be too late. And they would have moved on to the next property that they want to destroy. And I just don't want that to happen.
That was beautiful.